Your presence has been detected and recorded.
What does it mean for us to be present? When we are present to another and direct our attention outside of ourselves, do we construct a co-presence with them?
Synesthesia, a big word which, from the Greek, which includes two things fundamentally: synth, together, the idea of being together, and esthesia, which means perception. In synesthesia, you could taste words, you could see sounds, or feel a sensation on your skin when you smell certain things. It's a combination of the different senses coming together: the physical, the visual. Every creation and every creative process is, for me, a synesthetic journey.
Could my being present to you make me more present to myself?
It becomes even more painful because here you are ready to go and there's nobody ready to see you.
It is the audience, the spectator, that turns the performance into something else through their interaction, their response. And the performance is shaped between the interaction, the interactivity of the two.
In the theater, in the live space, the sense of being connected to who you are performing to is enormous.
The famous energy of the co-presence of performers and audience, and we all know and we all miss it. But however, it felt like it is not, this famous energy is not something that happens automatically. It is not only because people gather in the same space, in the same physical space. In order to have that energy, it has to be produced consciously. It has to be, or it has to, not maybe consciously, but it has the effect of energy has to be produced.
I remember seeing a performance of Tijan Bai in an enormous open air space in Delhi. And she was speaking to me directly. And I'm sure everyone around me felt that too. And you could obviously not hear every word she was saying, but it didn't matter because you were drawn in to her life, as it were. You were drawn into her personality. And that, I think, happens quite frequently when you are performing in a live space. The audience is a participant in this entire experience. That's what makes a rehearsal different from a performance. We rehearse for months and months and months, and then suddenly you go on stage and everything changes because you have met your other half. You've completed the circuit.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left.
How am I casting? Am I casting the artist, or am I casting the device or the network that the artist is using?
Phygital, combination of the physical and the digital. Has the body now extended into digital space? Not only in the sense of data or datafication, but in the sense of really feeling embodied in digital space. I no longer feel, I am only flesh, bone, and blood, to be honest, speaking for me. I feel like the words that I put online are actually part of me because they stay there and I sometimes go back over them. I feel like the photographs, the images, the videos that I put online are also a part of me, and they're sort of like, there's my shifting self is sort of captured in them.
I understand you through my senses. I want to be understood through your senses. Is it possible for you to see my breath? Hear my skin? Touch my vision? And smell my movement? Can touch become a way for us to know each other? When we touch each other, we have a shared surface, a shared skin.
I paint not with oil and brushes or crayons, but I paint with human beings.
I use both my two inherent cultures of the body, which is disability and indigeneity, as ways of making my work. I've recently been very interested in the DNA quality of my body and what that's telling me as a person in terms of my story and my history. Particularly First Nations people, we don't particularly know a lot about our foundations. A lot of the history that we have is quite fractured. And so I think this idea of DNA or DNA always being present, regardless of like the separation of the history, the oral history that we might have as people, it's always present in the body. And so ways to extract that information is sort of how I draw from my performances.
Distinction between the curricular and the co-curricular, that is so much a part of, again, this colonial legacy that we have, where all bodily engagements are all co-curricular. So it could be dancing, it could be music, it could be physical activities, it could be sports. So again, what counts as curricular and what counts as co-curricular is also determined by that paradigm. And somehow co-curricular is only about skills, it's not about knowledge. So knowledge is the really serious stuff that you do, and the co-curricular is some skills that you acquire, which relate to the body. So again, I think those kinds of binaries and those kinds of paradigms need to be questioned.
The current pandemic is written through the war language.
The enemy is out there. The enemy is the other body, the other. I want you to know you are not an enemy to me. We smile to each other every day when we shortly meet on the street, when I meet you in the shop. What happens to you happens to me. I'm not an individual. I am with you. I miss you. This dropping I is many times a privilege, especially for those who never had chance to say I, right? Because they were excluded. So for me, it's very important to say that this coming to we is not that only that I have this privilege to lose my I, but to really think that I am a part of community and I have responsibility as I towards the we.
Crowd is perhaps one of the most familiar things when we think of South Asia. What is a crowd and what is its relationship to contagion? So much like the virus itself, the crowd also personifies the power of bodies and minds in contact. The crowd is both a solution and a scapegoat. And in that sense, it is a true political enigma.
You know, the community, tribalism in sport, the irrational way I will bond with somebody I hardly know just because he supports the team I do.
These kind of huge gatherings that are represented in festivals also, particularly in the last couple of years, come with their negatives as well. So there have been a kind of increasing voice in Edinburgh that was about over-tourism and that was questioning the increasing cost and commercialisation of the cultural offering that happens there every August. The carbon footprint when you bring so many people into one place at one time, and the impact and responsibility for what happens in terms of climate change and the green agenda.
I'm feeling very anxious because the tide is slowly rising. And যত জলটা উঠছে ততই একটা একটা করে বেবি টুপ করে জলে ডুবে যাচ্ছে। আশেপাশে চারিদিকে খুব ব্যস্ত সমস্ত হয়ে লোকজন হাঁটাচলা করছে। চারিদিকে একটা মেলার মতন বসেছে। People are celebrating. And then I feel so restless, so helpless. আমার এত খারাপ লাগতে শুরু করে, আমি মাথাটা তুলে দেখি চারিদিক থেকে বিল্ডিং ভেঙে যাচ্ছে, লোক মরে যাচ্ছে।
Space is a being rather than just a soulless entity. We are the brains and the muscles and the veins of the body, and the audience which is coming in is actually the blood which is flowing through the veins.
One of the biggest struggle, if you ask me, is to find ideal spaces to present Kudiyatam. But often actually we find really ideal spaces in the most unexpected places. Like once, for instance, we performed Abhijnana Shakuntalam under a highway bridge on the banks of a river, but of course we had, you know, some concealment and everything, but it was so intense because there was that constant, you know, like sound of a kind of it was not like the cars running, but there were so many cars running that there was this kind of a drone, a kind of, you know, a sound ambience. But it was extremely intense, and it was like one of the best performances of that play.
It's quite elemental, right? It's elemental to the space of arts and culture, because without that, the space to make, the space to create, you know, meet, the space to share, is elemental to just the making of what we make every day. Even if it's an outdoor space, it's an indoor space, it's a black box theater, whatever it is, it's a small studio, but there is space, right? Like there is the idea of physical space as being quite elemental and core to making.
We also wanted to work in non-conventional spaces was also because we wanted to change our relationship with our audience. Okay, I got a bit tired of not knowing who my audience is. In a smaller space where there are 40, 30, 50 people, it will be possible to know your audience, and we need to make an extra effort to know them. So in the early days when we were in different spaces, actually actors used to be told that just mingle before the show, just chat. And it was, I think, unsettling for them.
If we are again going in this phygital direction where the body and the, you know, is sort of strung out across space, then again, what does space mean, right? Is space any longer than just the physical?
One of the largest human-associated microbial habitats is actually the skin. And hand surfaces have higher levels of diversity than other skin surfaces. Bacteria found on your palm is one of the most dynamic skin microbial habitats. And what are bacteria? Probably it's very hard to define them, define their actions on us and with us and in us, but we already know, and I say we because I don't know if I should say I.
Know that we are not only artistic spaces, we are also political spaces as well. And when I say political, I don't mean only in the political partidist way, you know, I mean in the political sense that we have to make a call for action in order to be part in our spaces of the society and the political scheme of the people.
Society mein itna kuch, you know, from the government administration या from the, you know, societal operation, इतना सारा कुछ है लोगों के ऊपर कि उन्हें एक्सप्रेस करने के लिए स्पेसेस चाहिए. इस तरह के माहौल में आपके लिए कम्युनिटी स्पेस होना बहुत जरूरी है, जहां पर कम्युनिटी अपने आप को एक्सप्रेस कर सके.
there is a certain crisis of imagination. And there's lots of talking about how we are going to become a community. But then the step to do it is actually almost impossible to foresee or to imagine.
In my country, people don't say, Mom, I want to go to the theater. They say, Mom, can I go to open my mind? And then Mom asks, where? And then the answer, where we learn to know each other. This is Nyogolong. And for Nyogolong, it makes sense to build a theater where the community come and learn about each other and learn the value of the society, who is the culture, and also learn about how to live together. And this kind of sharing a better life together and also supporting each other, that's the philosophy behind it. I think community, they are the best thing to really take as a source of imagination, or as even creating a venue there that they also can mirror themselves.
I think it's so deeply interesting and important to see and to foresee the fact that we are served by our communities in the same ways that we serve them. You know, it's a symbiotical, I would say, nature within art spaces and within the people.
These kind of community setups are part of our DNA, you know, it's there across all the cultures in the world. And what we are often trying to do is just replicate or, just, use those tools which have already been given in our indigenous knowledge system.
It's important, I believe, to create these little spaces, little pockets of resistance. And by resistance, what does one mean? One means something very simple, which is the ability to just speak the truth.